Hi everyone, welcome back to Mode Bespoke. I'm Atenas. For today's project, I'm going to teach you how to make a Tunisian crochet flower. So let's get started. The written pattern for today's project is available on my blog. I'll leave the link in the description box below. So we are going to be crocheting a Tunisian crochet flower, but I'm going to be using a regular hook. And this is because the flower isn't really big. So it's not very big, it doesn't have a whole lot of stitches to it. So we'll be able to crochet with a regular hook. So I'm using an F hook, and this is a 3.75 millimeter hook. And for my yarn, I'm using a size 3, a DK yarn. You can use any yarn you want as well. All right, so you begin with a magic circle. So wrap the yarn around 2 fingers and make a loop. So like this. So then you're going to grab your working yarn and you're going to pass it through this circle we made right here. There we go. So you're going to be left with a loop made with the working yarn, and then you're going to have your big circle, which is going to be the magic circle part. So let's put our hook right here in that loop that we just made. And now we're just going to pinch the circle. And we're going to yarn over and pull through this loop on our hook. And that's going to be a chain. All right, so pinch the circle and you're ready to begin. You need to make a chain of 7 stitches. So yarn over and you're going to pull this top loop through this bottom loop. So there's 1, and then yarn over, pull through, 2, yarn over, pull through, 3, and then 4. We go 5, 6, and 7. So chain 7. And now we're going to begin our foundation row. So your foundation row, you're just going to cast on 1 stitch for every stitch of your chain. So beginning on the 2nd stitch from your chain, right here, we're going to insert our hook into that stitch. And then you're going to yarn over and you're going to pull up a loop. Leave this loop on your hook because we are working Tunisian crochet. Go into the next stitch and cast on another loop. So insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. So now we have 3. Insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, 4, and then we have 5, 6, there we go, and 7. So at the end of this, let me get this last one, you should have 7 loops on your hook. There we go, 6 and 7. Excellent. So now we have to slip stitch in the magic circle. So you're going to insert your hook into the center of the circle, so right in here, and we're going to slip stitch. So hook goes into the center of the magic circle, yarn over, and you're going to pull up a loop. And now you're going to pull that top loop through the 2nd loop on your hook to slip stitch. So top loop through this 2nd one. There we go. And now we're ready to crochet our return pass. Now, the return pass is going to be a little bit different than what we normally do. Because we just did that slip stitch, that counts as our yarn over pull through 1. So for the rest of our row, we're just going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops off of our hook. So yarn over and pull through 1, and then 2, and then we repeat. So we're going to yarn over and then we're going to pull through 2. So it's just kind of like a regular return pass, only you're skipping that yarn over, pull through 1, since you already did that when you did your slip stitch. So we go yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, until you are left with just 1 loop on your hook. And once you've got that 1 loop, we're ready for the first row. So we're going to work into that very first vertical stitch. I know, we usually skip it, but we're going to insert our hook behind the top loop or top leg of the very first vertical stitch. And I highly suggest you hold the loop on your hook with your index finger so that you don't lose that stitch. So hold the stitch down, insert your hook behind that top loop of the first vertical stitch, yarn over, and cast on 1. And now we're going to cast on 1 loop for the remaining vertical stitches of the row. So insert your hook behind the top loop or the top leg of the next stitch, and then you're going to yarn over, and you're going to pull up a loop. And then we're going to repeat in the next one. Insert your hook into the top loop stitch, yarn over, and cast on. So we're just going to cast on a Tunisian simple stitch. So that's all we're doing. This entire flower is just worked with a Tunisian simple stitch. You're a little confused about the legs. You see this stitch is made up of 2 threads. So this back one is the back leg or the back loop. The one in the front right here is the front leg or the front loop. So call it whatever you want. I've heard it many ways. I call it a loop. Some people call it a leg. So just insert your hook behind that top thread of a vertical stitch. All right, once you get to the end of the stitch, you're going to have one last vertical stitch, and it's going to be this one right here at the end. It's a little hidden, but trust me, it's a lot easier to see when you have the work in front of you, as opposed to trying to film it on camera. But cast on that stitch as well, and now you will have 8 loops on your hook because we have added one. So you will have 8 loops on your hook. All right, so now you have to slip stitch into the magic circle. So insert your hook into the magic circle, yarn over, and you're going to pull up a loop like so. And now you're going to pull that top loop through the second loop on your hook. So here's the top one, here's the second one. Just pull that through that second loop like that. And now we're ready to continue our return pass. So for our return pass, remember we're just doing yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, until you are left with just the one vertical stitch, goodness, until you are left with just the one loop on your hook. All right, so we are done here. Let's move on to the next row. This next row, we are also going to increase. So remember that for our increase, we are going to work into that first vertical stitch. So Tunisian slip stitch in that first vertical stitch. Remember to hold down the loop on your hook. And then you're just going to cast on the rest of the stitches. But this one, once you do that increase, that second vertical stitch is going to be a little hidden. So it's hiding right over here. I don't know if you can see it. You're going to have to kind of look for it a little bit. Don't skip that stitch. Otherwise, you would have increased for nothing since you skipped a stitch. But find that stitch, don't skip it, and then you're going to cast on in every stitch for the rest of our row until we get to this last stitch right here. There it is. It's nice and tiny, but that is a vertical stitch, and we need to cast on into that. And at the end of this row, you should have 9 loops on your hook. So here we go, 9, yep. And now we're just going to slip stitch into the center of our magic circle. So there you go. Once you slip stitch, you complete a return pass. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, until you are left with just the one loop on your hook. All right, and there we go. So we have 2 rows of increases so far. We're going to do a 3rd row of increases. So work into that very first vertical stitch, Tunisian crochet into that one, or Tunisian simple stitch, I should say, into that stitch, and then into the rest of the stitches of the row. And that is the last increase row you are going to work. So while I'm casting these on, let's do a quick review. So we did chain 7, foundation row. So we cast on all of our stitches, and then we did 3 rows of increases. So at the end of this 3rd row, you should have 10 loops on your hook. So I'm going to work this return pass real quick, and then I'll show you the decreases. Now, you're not going to do 3 rows of decreases because you have to work a bind off, and that's in order to start back in the center, and so you can work the rest of the petals. This will make a little more sense later on. So we're just going to work 2 rows of decreases since we've worked 3 rows of increases. So let's start with that. So for the decreases, we're just going to skip the first 2 vertical stitches. So here's the first one, and there's the second one. Just skip them. You're going to go right into the 3rd vertical stitch. So here's 1, 2, vertical stitch number 3, and you are going to cast on into that stitch. So here we go. Grab our hook, go into that 3rd vertical stitch, yarn over, and cast on. That's it. So we have now decreased. So from here, we should have, I think it's 9 loops. Yep. So you should have 9 loops at the end of this row. And then don't forget to do that slip stitch here at the end. So by the time you finish, you should have 9 loops. So we went again from 7, 8, 9, 10, and then we're back to 9. All right, so that was our first row of decreases. We're going to do one more row of decreases. So skip the first 2 vertical stitches, Tunisian slip stitch into the 3rd vertical stitch, and then just cast on the rest of your stitches. So at the end of this row, you should be left with 8 loops on your hook. So this is where we want to be to finish that last row of decreases. So here we go. And then I just have to slip stitch. There we go. And just work a return pass. All right, so this next row is going to be a bind off. So we have done this a lot in the past, and this is a single crochet bind off for all of you that are a little more experienced. For those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, a bind off is going to close the gaps right here that you see in the stitching. So we're going to work into that 3rd vertical stitch. So remember to skip the first 2. You are going to cast on a loop. So insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. And now you're going to close it like you would a single crochet. So you have 2 loops on your hook. And all you're going to do is just yarn over and pull through both of those loops. So there we go. That was a single crochet bind off. So now we're going to go into the next vertical stitch, insert our hook into the stitch, just like you would for a Tunisian simple stitch cast on. You're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. And once you have 2 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over and pull through both of those loops. So like that. And that was just a single crochet. So we'll repeat it here in this next one. So yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through 2, and repeat in the remaining vertical stitches of the row. And that does include that very last one that's close to the magic circle, because it is one of the vertical stitches. So don't forget that stitch. There we go. Single crochet in there. And then you're going to slip stitch. So slip stitch into the center of the magic circle, and you are done. So there is your petal. It is ready to go. So now for this flower, we need a total of 5 petals. So this entire process that we just did, you're going to repeat it 4 more times. So let's begin here. So you're going to chain 7. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you are going to cast on a foundation row and then just repeat. So let's review. So it is foundation row. So chain 7, foundation row, 3 rows of increases, 2 rows of decreases, and then a bind off. And it's a single crochet bind off. Repeat this until you have a total of 5 petals on your flower. Let me finish the remaining 4 petals and I'll see you again in a moment. Oh, and something I can't forget to tell you, since we are working with a magic circle, you're going to have this little piece of yarn that's left, this little tail end. If you get to a point where the tail end is really, really short like this, just pull on it. It's going to tighten the magic circle and it's going to bring your petals closer together, but you do need to have this little tail end of yarn sticking out. This is what's going to tighten the circle and make the flower come together. If that didn't make any sense, let me finish the petals and then I will show you why you need to leave this little tail end out. Alright, so I have completed all of the petals I can complete. I'm going to end my flower by making a chain 1, and this is after that last slip stitch. I'm going to cut my yarn, pull out the yarn and the hook, tighten up that little knot here at the bottom, and now that little tail end of yarn that we had for the center of the magic circle, it's this one right here, you're going to pull on this one. So once you finish your flower, pull on this really, really tight, so as tight as you can, and that's going to close the center of the flower. So it might not close it all the way, but since you just have to sew in the center of the flower, you can leave it as wide as you want, depending on how visible you want that little center of the flower to be. So I'm going to double knot this here, now that I'm done. After double knotting it, you can just weave in your ends, or use the yarn to sew it up, whatever you need to, and then that's it. So the little center of the flower, all you do is just sew it up on the inside with whatever thread you want, and you're done. So I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. Go check out my blog. I do have the pattern posted there. And if you want to see any more of my work, you can follow me on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next tutorial.